Hi, and welcome back to the Seven Thunders video series. We are studying the vision of Revelation 10 because the clock and the key have been sealed within this little scroll for the past 2,000 years, awaiting the time when the bride of Christ would arrive at her midnight hour in age-to-age timekeeping, and that time is now. In this video, we will begin the process of consuming the seven thunders, just as John of Patmos was instructed to eat the scroll. It's important to note that the seven thunders cannot be captured with words. It is a language of spiritual concepts and ideas. This graphic cites a few of the ideas associated with the 14 images of creation featured around the rim of the wheel, but it is not exhaustive or prescriptive. The spiritual conversation between God's voice and the human heart is meant to be personal, ongoing, and never-ending. The seven thunders begin communicating with the human spirit through seven complementary relationships that lie opposite one another on the static picture of the key. The first roar of thunder forms a relationship between God's divine light and the creation of living creatures in the waters of the earth. And this is where life begins. All life begins in the waters of the earth, whether it be the human womb or whether it be an egg or whether it be a river. The relationship reveals the light of life. In John's gospel, it also mentions the light of life. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The roar of the second thunder forms a relationship between the sky, God's divine breath, and the birds that fly across its expanse. The birds speak symbolically to the human spirit, and the human spirit's ability to soar to great heights, or conversely, to have its wings clipped by an opposing energy. The bird speaks to the desire, the spiritual desire, to rise above the temporal waters below the sky and drink from the eternal waters above the sky. The roar of the third thunder combines the dry land and the flesh of the animal kingdom. This complementary relationship speaks of all things temporal. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. The fourth roar of thunder combines the fruit and seed-bearing vegetation with the image of God, the imago Dei. The image of God created within humanity is received as light enters the human eye and mind. It is through light that we gain a sense of what the image of God is all about. The voice of this thunder, the fourth thunder, cements humanity's spiritual purpose within creation. And that is to model the fruit-bearing, seed-bearing imagery that grows on the earth. We are to grow strong roots in the soil and reach toward a greater light. The roar of the fifth thunder speaks of the relationship between the human heart and the greater light that governs the day. The greater light nurtures all life on earth. Nothing could grow without the sun. The human heart is where the likeness of God resides, because its divine light lives within the human heart, and divine light is like the sunlight warming the earth. Just as the greater light governs the day, God's eternal fire governs within the human heart. The roar of the sixth thunder addresses the relationship between the lesser light of the moon that governs the night and the gift of dominion or temporal governance given to humankind. Now, the gift of dominion is on loan from God during one's temporal lifetime, just like the light of the moon is on loan from the greater light of the sun. It is a temporal partnership that lasts only for the duration of the person the life of the person exercising the gift of dominion or governance. And like the borrowed light of the moon, this gift of dominion can never shine brighter than the light of its giver. Therefore, the gavel is not to be used to judge the spiritual life of another. Instead, our personal gift of dominion is intended to govern and overcome our own internal darkness. The gift of governance also represents humanity's caretaking responsibility to govern as guardians and co-creators within creation, and how we use the gift of the gavel is critical to the health and well-being of humanity and creation itself. The seventh thunder is different from the roar of the other six thunders. It is the most silent of all thunders. It is barely a whisper. It combines starlight, barely whispered into creation on the fourth day, with the gift of spiritual freedom, which is barely whispered at the end of the creation story. Notice the four-winged butterfly. It's a four-winged creature that represents the gift of spiritual freedom and autonomy. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Now, this complementary relationship speaks of the joy of reaching spiritual maturity, becoming a pollinator, scattering light in dark places, and flying free from all encumbrances along our journey through time. These seven primary voices form seven complementary relationships that lay a foundation for a much larger communication system known as the wheelwork, mentioned in Ezekiel 1 and in Ezekiel 10. As the living creatures with four wings, notice the similarity between the butterfly and the four-winged creatures in Ezekiel's vision. As the living creatures with four wings interacted with the wheelwork, the flaming swords darting to and fro move the images of creation along the rim of the wheel. The wheel itself does not turn, but the images of creation move along the rim of the wheel, forming an ongoing, never-ending system, communication system, and all eyes are on the rim of the wheel. If these primary voices in creation sound familiar, they should. The language of creation is humanity's common tongue, adopted long before the development of written languages. So the seven thunders actually return us to a primal language, and a time when the human spirit spoke when the whole earth, I should say, had one language. Does that sound familiar? It should. Okay, so next up, why should we prophesy again? See you then.